Okay, in this video, we're going to do a couple of those circles that we have to figure out the area of, only getting one piece of information, and that is the radius. Okay, so we're going to figure out the area of a circle just by knowing what the radius is, and that's it. Okay, I've drawn one here for you, and you notice it's a circle with the radius of 4. Remember, the radius is halfway across the circle. The radius is 4. It doesn't matter if it's inches or centimeters. It's just for now, it's 4. You can make it whatever you want, but it's 4. Okay. I've also given you a formula. A equals BH. What does that mean? A stands for area, which is what we're looking for. The B stands for base, right? The H stands for height. You can see that or not, okay? And like I said, the A right here stands for area. So area equals base, height. Now BH put together means you're going to multiply the two. Anytime you have two letters next to each other, it means you're multiplying them. Instead of dealing with dots or parentheses or that X that could confuse you, just BH. A equals base times height. All right? Now remember, all I have here is the radius, and you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute now, if all I have is the radius, how am I going to know what to plug into where? Well, I got good news for you. The radius is the same as the height. The radius of a circle, I don't know if you can see with that glare there, is the same as its height. So in this case, if the radius is 4, the height's also 4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite that formula, A equals B, and this time I am going to use a parentheses. And in that parentheses, I'm going to put the 4 to replace the H, because the H is the R, and there it is. The radius of 4 is the height. Okay? So far I've got area equals base times 4. Now I've got to figure out what the base is. Okay? The base is a simple formula as well. It's base equals 1/2 the large C, which of course is the circumference. The base is 1/2 of the circumference. And then you're thinking, wait a minute, what's the circumference of that circle? Remember back when they first taught you circumference, they gave you this formula? The circumference equals double pi, or 2 times pi, times r, which is the radius. 2 pi r, right? So that's all I need, because I know what the radius is. The radius is still 4. Even though I substituted for the height, it's still the radius. It's still 4. So I'm going to go C equals 2. Pi is what? 3.14. My little parentheses to separate it. Times the radius of what in this case? 4. So basically I'm going to multiply 2 times 3.14 times 4, and that'll be my circumference. So when I do that, I'm going to get, remember, doubling the pi is always 6.28 in your mind. So you could always say, when you see 2 pi, I think it's 6.28. That's all it is. Okay, so it's going to be 6.28 times 4, and that would be 25.12. So my circumference now is going to be 25.12. Okay? Now remember, I'm not done, because I don't want the circumference necessarily. What I want is half of the circumference to give me the base. But I needed this information first. So now I'm going to take this number, which is a circumference, 2512, and I'm going to cut it in half, because I need half of it, by dividing it by 2. When you divide something by 2, you're cutting it in half. So I'm going to take that number, divide it by 2, because half is 2 parts. And I get 12.56. So the base with that information, the base is going to be 12.56. If the circumference is 25.12 and half of the circumference is the base, then the base is 12.56. Okay? So now with that information, I'm going to take this formula of ABH and rewrite it completely. The area is 12.56, that's the base, times the height, or the radius, of 4. That's it. Now I just multiply them and I'll get my area. So when I multiply 1256 times 4, I get 50.24. So my area is 50.24. Okay? Remember, the base is half the circumference. The height is the radius. When you figure out what the circumference is, you cut it in half by dividing it by 2. You multiply that by the radius, which is the same as the height, and bam, there's your area. Okay? I'm going to give you another one. And remember, you could always pause and go back to what you have to do. Okay? I'm going to make a new circle with a new radius. Let's do this one. 6. And this time, I don't know if you can see with that glare, but this time what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to write the formulas down so you can use them as a guide. I already got this one, okay? I also need to know that the radius is the same as the height. I also need to know that the base is the same as 1/2 the circumference. And I get the circumference of a circle by multiplying pi times 2 and then the radius. This is old school, right? Okay, so now I'm ready to go. If the radius is the same as the height, then I know the height's going to be 6, because that's the radius. So A equals B times 6, okay? Now, I know that the base is half of the circumference. I get the circumference by doing 2 pi r. So I'm basically going to do 3.14 times 2 times 6. Don't forget it's also 6.28 is 2 pi. So circumference would be, in this case, 37.68. Okay? Remember though, that's not the number I use. I got to cut that in half still because the base is half the circumference. So I divide this number by 2. And I get 18.84. So the base is going to be 18.84. Okay? So I'm going to plug that in. All I'm going to do is I'm going to put area equals 18.84 times the radius or the height of 6, base, height, remember base, height, and I just multiply now. And when I multiply it, my final area is 113.04, or if you want to round it, 113 because of the 0. Okay? So once again, the height is the base. The base is half the circumference. The circumference is 2 pi r. You get the circumference, you cut that in half by dividing that number by 2. Multiply the two numbers you got, and there's your area. Okay? All right. I'm going to write one for you that you could do on your own. I'll even leave the formulas up for you. I'm just going to change the radius. Do this one on your own, and you could always go back and make sure you're right. Okay? Let's do a little bit trickier one. Let's do 8. So this circle now has a radius of 8. You could pause this. You could copy that down. Copy the formulas if you didn't do so yet. Okay? And see if you can figure out what the area would be using these formulas. Okay? All right. Good luck. See you later.